Three generations, each with a mic. XYZ Dictionary, the podcast. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hello, and welcome to XYZ Dictionary, the podcast where a Gen X, a millennial, and a Gen Z pick a topic, and through sharing thoughts, stories, and experiences, we try and bridge the generational divide. I'm your Gen Xer, Melissa Lux.
I'm your millennial, Toni Fox.
And I'm your Gen Zer, Cadie.
Yay! We're back again. So today's episode is brought to us by the letter D for dating.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah. I feel like a very rich topic, and probably I think one of the ways that we've seen things change, like almost as fast as we've seen them change in our technology episode.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Things have changed a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm old and have a lot of questions.
And I'm young, and I probably have the answers.
I'm hoping. I think you're going to be shocked by how things used to be.
I've heard how things used to be. My mother, I love her dearly, and she's gone on similar, like, man, you guys have it so confusing now, and it's so confusing. It's so hard now. What is this? What's this? What does talking mean? What do you guys not go on dates anymore? And I'm like, well,
These are the questions.
Mhm.
These are the questions that we have. I think that we might need to first start by maybe defining what we each think dating means.
Mm-hmm.
Toni, I want you to go first. I mean, I can go first if you really don't want to, but I'm kind of dying to know what you think.
I mean, I can go first. And I think that dating, there are different levels of dating. So it's not just like one thing to me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Dating can be casual where you're just kind of like, not like, you might not even be like exclusive, but you like choose to see that person like continuously or like over and over again or something. Or it can be like a commitment and exclusive and like monogamous, that kind of thing. So I feel like it's a wide spectrum for how I would define dating. I personally don't ever do the casual dating kind of thing. That's not really like interesting to me. That I would just call that a friendship.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But some people would definitely call the casual dating, still consider that to be dating. I think it depends on the person.
Yeah. I think that my generation considers dating as a means to an end. I really think that we dated in order to enter into some sort of monogamous relationship.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a weeding out process.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It wasn't like a thing you did for fun. It was a thing that you did like out of necessity to figure out like, is this person still in the game or not?
Interesting.
And winning the game, I think for people my age, although my views have changed, but certainly when I was growing up, like winning the game is getting married, which
It's a very different
yeah.
thing now.
Yeah, I don't
sure.
think that's winning the game anymore. But I still think there are people out there that think that is winning the game. Yeah. What about you?
Okay, so my generation is different because
I'm going to sit back for this
dating
one.
for us is so dependent on the type of person you are. So I would agree with Toni that dating has many different definitions. However, my generation, when we say we are dating somebody, we are already in a relationship with them. It is not a pre-trial period. That's the talking stage, which we will get into.
Okay.
So
This makes sense to me, actually.
a couple of my friends actually will go on dates and be dating and be committed to a person without putting a label on their relationship just yet. And they'll do that for a couple of months before eventually being like, hey, we're exclusive, we're in a relationship. But for the most part, it's that you like somebody. That's another thing, too. It's very, very rare you start the talking stage or a situationship or dating somebody that you're not actively crushing on. The feelings come first and the actions come later, for the most part.
Okay.
And for the most part, you start liking somebody if you start talking to them, hypothetically, if they like return your feelings, right? And then you talk and you talk and you talk, and sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't. And if it works out, most of the times, like, you enter a relationship pretty quickly. There tends to be a defining moment from when you go from your talking stage into your dating life. And so for some of my friends, that's been, well, when I see this person in person, or the first time we hang out, just the two of us.
Kind of want to throw away this whole thing and just talk about crushing on people.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, how you described it is how all of my relationships have been too. I've never tried doing the online dating thing, which I think would be a completely different
That's true.
situation.
I think my thing is different because my perspective is from somebody who is too young to be on the online dating apps, because online dating apps are for adults.
Right.
But I'd say, like, for the most part, my generation doesn't really do what Gen X does, which is you date the person as the trial period. Our trial period is that talking stage.
Which is friendship.
Kind of.
Mm.
It's friendship, but it's a lot of flirting.
Oh,
So,
flirty friends.
So the talking stage...
Flirty friends.
So the talking stage is basically you guys making it very clear that you have romantic interest in each other without ever coming right out and saying it.
Okay, this makes sense to me. Does this make sense to you so far?
I mean, not something that didn't make sense to me before. That I have kind of a similar.
Yeah.
Cadie and I are more on the same page, I think. Which is
Okay.
also because I'm dating a person who is what's the like space between millennial and Gen Z, Zennial.
A zillennial.
Zillennial.
Yeah.
I'm dating a zillennial.
I'm dating a boomer. This is what we do. Do you feel like their expectations of dating and your expectations of dating are similar?
That's a loaded question. I feel like I shouldn't talk about it too much.
That's
but-
fine. We can.
What
We can
about
cut.
what about like to generalize, maybe so that way we don't have to go so personal, to generalize, do you think the generations have different expectations of dating?
Absolutely.
Yes.
I keep on hitting things, guys. I'm a mess today.
Dating brings it out in you.
Dating brings it out in me. In my heart, I'm still a 12-year-old girl. It's like, oh my gosh, guys, I think he likes me.
I mean, I think that when it comes to that point, we're all just still 12-year-old girls.
Absolutely. I remember. Do you remember? Toni introduced me to the concept of limerence. I was crushing on somebody so hard, and Toni was like, "Sounds like limerence."
What's limerence?
Oh, do it, do it.
I want.
So limerence, wow, I forgot that I brought that up with you. So limerence is when you kind of like when you have a crush, but like it's more than crushing. Like you have a limerent object who is the person that you have these feelings for, and it's like almost like veering into like codependence, where like
I was going to say psychosis.
yeah, where like you are not necessarily in a relationship with this person, but it's almost like you are, even if you're not, because you feel like you're committed to that person even when you're not in a relationship, and you can get into a relationship at some point, but like it's hard to actually get out of that
Right.
until like there's a very like concrete thing where either like you find a new limerent object and move on to that, or like your limerent object like shuts you down so hard that like your whatever relationship you have with them is like basically ended.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good to know. I
Yeah.
think I've definitely experienced that
Yeah.
multiple times in my life. I think my generation, I think that's something that we struggle with because my generation, partially because we're so young, and partially because I think we really love to romanticize our life, we hold on to the people that we like, that we're talking to, that we're dating. Like, even if we're not in a relationship with them, we tend to be committed to that person.
Yeah.
There's this thing that my generation jokes about online a lot that I see all of the time where, you know, breaking up from a multiple year long relationship and we're fine. But it's like that 2-week talking stage, man, still hurts my heart to this day.
I don't think that it's actually different between generations. I think that, or unless you would say differently, it's definitely not different. Like my generation, I would definitely say is like very much there too.
Yeah, I think that the thing that might lend itself, the other thing about a limerent object is that you're projecting all of these things onto this person without actually knowing them. And I think that because y'all do so much communicating digitally, that you're able to project like your personification onto their text message or the meme they send you, which like I think could probably elevate your limerence.
It's like it feels like a message is being sent.
Yes,
even though there is no message, it's just a text or a meme or whatever.
Right, you're like, I think it's easier with that kind of communication to insert yourself into it.
Definitely.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because I think my generation definitely jokes about how much like we project onto other people, or we realize like, oh, this person who I like, I don't actually like them. I like the idea of them that I had in my head.
Yeah, the shutdown is real rough when your limerent object shuts you down.
Yeah,
but it does. It snaps you right out of it. I've been there.
Haven't we all?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, that wasn't very fun.
No. No. Why do we do this?
Well, I mean, to that point, I think like valid question. Why do we go out to date people? I think for me personally, it's not just the fact that like it's fun and enjoyable. There is a little bit of that too, but it's a different type.
I just want to challenge you with fun and enjoyable.
Well, the beginning of it is fun and enjoyable, and the honeymoon stage is fun and enjoyable.
Yes.
If you're lucky.
Yeah, if you have the right like people. And I think that's why the talking stage for my generation is so important, because the vast majority of possible relationships die out in that stage.
Right.
If you realize like, oh, nope, this person has a serious like red flag, this person told me something, it's just not going to work out. It's a lot easier to detach yourself from a talking stage than it is in a relationship or even a courtship.
Yeah.
Like, that's a very old-fashioned word.
You're wooing.
Right. Yeah. Somebody who you want to woo.
I love being wooed.
Me too. Love a good wooing.
Woo.
For me, I don't know. I get really, really emotionally involved in people. And, like, I just want to be around them. And that's why I date.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I think it's a different type of companionship, and it's a different type of connection that you have with somebody. And when it's a right relationship and when it's a healthy one, it is one of the most rewarding things in the world, I would say, to be in a relationship with somebody, to know that they return your feelings, that you two are strong together. And, like, I don't know. I think my generation, I see a lot of people being like, well, Generation Z just likes to sleep around and date casually. And I think my generation, and just the generations in general, is too big to label to label them as Gen Z only likes to date for fun.
That's also like, that's because the people that are saying it are old now. Like people
They used to do that too.
Exactly.
Well, and I see it in like people being like, I was born in the wrong generation. This is the type of romance that I want. And whenever I see those, I'm like, but Generation Z, there are people out there who also want that. We're so individualized when it comes to dating that I think generalizations are just not very accurate beyond how we date people.
Yeah.
Right? So, but I think for Generation Z, it's one of two reasons. Either it is a fun and casual thing and a great way to spend your time because you're young and you know most likely this is not going to last forever,
Yeah.
right? Or it's a more serious thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say it kind of depends on which corner of Gen Z you're in, because a lot of Gen Zers are like, no, I don't want to get married. And a lot of them are yes, and in fact are married and get married very young. And then you have a third group, which is the group that I belong into, where it's like, I do want to get married someday, but I want to get married in like my late 20s, early 30s after I'm like settled
great idea.
and
Yes.
like
Be
a
fully
foundation.
baked.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
didn't get married until I was 35, and it was still a huge mistake.
I got married when I was 22, and I was
Oh.
not like fully baked, as you said. So I've been divorced for a few years now. So it's like I highly recommend not getting married until you're 30-ish
Yeah.
at the earliest.
Yeah.
I changed so much in my 20s.
Right.
It's like
Yeah.
it's crazy.
It's crazy.
I feel like there's kind of two different life plans that I think we're starting to see butt heads a little bit more. And that is either your 20s are for kids and family, and like you start your family and you start raising your kids really young, or your 20s are for travel and fun, or your 20s are for your career.
I think the only reason to have kids in your 20s is because you have the energy to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, you lose that real fast.
Yeah. Yeah. But then my friends and I would talk about my one of my dear friends had her first kid when she turned 40. And she was saying how she was like, I was like, do you think this is like, does it feel too late? Do you wish you had done it in your 20s? And she was like, Melissa, if I had done this in my 20s, I would have left my baby in a bodega by accident.
I think I would be a better parent now than I would
Yes.
have been whenever I was 20. But that's also because like I feel like mentally I'm just like a little bit more put together than I was then.
For sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people forget that, what is it, 25 is when your brain fully stops?
27.
27. Okay. Like, a lot of people forget that even when you turn 18, you're technically not fully developed adult yet. So you should give yourself some grace when you mess up, because just because legally you're an adult doesn't mean that mentally you are.
Absolutely.
There's so much more to like grow and change into. And
Yeah.
And there's also the idea that like adults have to be perfect, which they're not, and like you're still allowed to change and grow even when you're in like your 30s and your 40s.
I think I've changed more in my 40s than I have at any other point in my life. Even more than my 20s, which were tumultuous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My 20s, I changed a lot, but the tumultuous part didn't start until my 30s.
Interesting. Yeah.
Because I changed so much in my 20s, and then that was like internally. So then I had to make changes to my life in my 30s. And that was where like
Yeah.
shit hit the fan.
Totally.
See, now I haven't experienced my 20s or my 30s yet. I'm 17.
I
Just
can't
for,
wait to see
for
what happens in
reference.
your 20s.
Me too.
So this is so off topic. This
Fair.
is very off
Go.
topic. But I made my college decision the other day.
And
So I'm going to George Mason,
yeah.
which I'm so excited for,
Oh, that's
because
so great.
I'll be spending this time next year. I'll be in Spain studying abroad.
That's awesome.
Unbelievable.
So I'm very excited for that. But to that point, to try and like loop this back in, I think that, you know, I've changed a lot in the past 4 years. I think my 13-year-old self, if I went and told her like, okay, this is what you're doing with your life, this is the college you're going to. At the age of 13, I still wanted to be an astrophysicist and go to New Mexico Tech.
Wow.
Now I'm going to a school in Virginia for communications. So my life plan has changed drastically.
Yeah.
And it's going to change again.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so exciting.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the fun stuff.
Yeah. It feels crazy and stressful whenever it's happening, and
Yes.
you're like, I made this decision, and I really committed a lot to it.
Mm-hmm.
Don't what's the quote? Don't keep making don't continue making a mistake just because you spent a lot of time doing it in the first place.
Mm.
Something like that. And
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be a mistake. You don't have to consider things to be a mistake, but just know that it's not right for you anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is a really good lead in back to dating.
Yes,
because
exactly.
Oh,
I know so many people, and I don't want to get into too many of my personal experiences because I don't want to get on here and like talk badly about people
Yeah.
who I still sort of know because we're so young and like we've made a lot of mistakes
Yes.
because we're so young. But I will say that me and a lot of other people have gotten into relationships that have turned sour just
Yes.
because we become different people in that
Mhm.
course, and those people are no longer compatible. And I know I've struggled with still holding on to that when I should have been like, nope, you know what? I'm just going to walk away. And I think that that's really hard for at any point of your life to be
Yes.
like, I made this really big commitment to this person. And now I'm just supposed to walk away from it. No, I don't want to do that,
right.
even though you really should.
I was married for 10 years, in the relationship for 15 years.
Mhm.
And I say flippantly, like, it was a mistake. Getting married is a mistake. But truthfully, at the time, it was the only choice I wanted to make. And I wouldn't have done it any differently.
Yeah.
Me today would probably have made a different choice, but that was the choice that was available to me and that I was excited about.
Yeah.
You know, and so I try and like give myself a lot of grace for how long it took me, because I was changing inside the parameters of that relationship, and like that's really powerful. And I have a lot of gratitude
Yeah.
for the ways that I changed, even though it was a very difficult time.
Right.
Yeah, similar. Wow, I can't speak anymore. I had a similar situation. Like I felt really similarly. Like I was really, because I know, like in the 50s, if a woman wasn't happy in a marriage, like doesn't
Too
matter.
bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Too bad. Yeah.
I'm like so happy and grateful to the world that like I had the option to get a divorce.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, things are getting better in a lot of ways. Maybe not with apps.
And that's our segue to the
I've
next
segued us
thing.
into the apps. I really do want to talk about the apps.
Okay, I don't have that many experiences myself with the apps. However, I know my older relatives.
Yeah.
Hi, you know who you are if you're listening to this. I love you. But there's an older relative of mine who is on dating apps, and that's how they met their current partner.
Yeah.
And they've been together for 2.5 years and a couple of days. And so that's how this person met their partner, and that's how this person got onto like the dating scene. So
Yeah.
I think for younger millennials and older Gen Z, dating apps are like how you meet your partner.
This has changed so much. There was a huge stigma. It was called online dating, right? There was no such thing as an app at the time. Like if you met your partner through online dating, like you made up another story about how you met,
Yeah.
because it was so stigmatized.
Yeah. I mean, there was the Craigslist killer.
Yeah. Well, of course. I met my ex-husband on Match.com, but we met in 2006. I had been on Match since, I know, Cadie. I know.
I was born in 2006.
But I had been on Match since probably on and off since probably 1999.
Wow. I didn't realize that Match.com was that early on in
I cannot wait to tell you this.
the internet.
Okay, yeah, what?
Match.com, when I was on Match, you couldn't upload pictures. I mean, you could, but it was a lot of work. So on Match, you had to do a description. You had to
Oh.
write a physical description of yourself. And my description was that I looked like a cross between Gillian Anderson from The X-Files and a Muppet.
Can you like intercut a picture of yourself from that age into the video here?
Oh, I probably could. Yeah. I could probably get that done. And maybe a Muppet also. And I think it was dead on. I don't think it was a catfish at all. I think people met me and were like, yeah, that tracks.
Nice.
It makes sense why people were so concerned about catfishing in the early days of the internet and online dating then, if you couldn't even like upload photos.
Oh, yeah. No, people, you had to just kind of trust what people said about themselves. Yeah. And then you'd meet somebody and you'd be like, this,
It's interesting because, like, for my generation, the younger side of Gen Z, even if we don't meet our people through, like, online dating apps, which I hope we don't because we're not supposed to be on those apps.
right.
We still meet them online, like, through social media.
Right.
We meet them most likely, and most of the times they're people who maybe we haven't met in real life, but we've met people who have met them.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like a I'm dating you across the world situation.
Yeah.
It's more so a, hey, you're a mutual friend of a mutual friend. And so you follow each other most likely on Instagram because that's what a lot of people in my generation use. And you guys start talking and then you go into the talking stage, right?
Is talking just talking? Like, are you ever with the person? Or, like,
So my own personal experience,
Yes.
it has been pretty much online with a few exceptions.
so it's not even talking, it's typing.
It's it's typing. You're talking if you're calling them.
Yes,
But-
but you're talking about being in the typing stage.
Mhm. But for the most part, at least for me, when you see them, if you do see them, it's very different, which is where the situationship comes in, because you might be very romantic in when you're talking to each other outside of seeing each other, and then when you see each other, it's like, nope, we're just friends. And then when you guys are alone, then that might be a different story. Which is kind of what like a situationship is. You're up and down and you're up and down, and one day it really seems like you guys are dating and interested, and the next day it's not, and you know, it's situationships are messy.
Have you ever been in a situationship?
No.
I feel like things were a little bit more clear cut.
I don't know. I mean, I think it all depends. I mean, what you're saying that a situationship comes from you're talking online, and then when you're together, that's what causes the situationship.
It can be that. It can also be, I think. Now, I've never been in what I would classify as a situationship, but from what I've seen online and what I can gather, it's basically a relationship where you're not in an actual relationship.
Right.
There's no label on it. But one moment it seems like you guys are going to get to that label, and the next it seems like, nope, it's absolutely not happening. It's situational, hence the name.
So it's like there's a disconnect between the different ways that you're engaging with each other.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, then I would say probably not for me. And talking for me is interesting because whenever I was in like college, we kind of recognized this thing where because we had instant messenger back then. And we recognized this thing where you would talk to someone for a while online, and then when you saw them in person, it would be kind of weird and awkward, and like it was almost like it was a different person than who you had been talking to.
Yep.
So we intentionally like didn't talk to each other online like that.
Okay.
So
Interesting.
Oh,
our
that is
our
interesting.
talking was actually like we are seeing each other, but we're with like we're always with other people, but we kind of like gravitate towards each other. That was what our talking was.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep, that kind of makes sense. Just knowing, now the one dating story that I do not feel bad about sharing very publicly is my parents' dating story.
Oh.
So my parents, I blame them for my my unrealistic expectations of
Yeah.
love, because my mom and dad met through our church in high school. And my mom started dating him March of her freshman year of high school.
Whoa.
And they have been married for 24 years in July.
Wow.
And so I look up to them and I look up to their relationship a lot because of that.
Mhm.
And the reason I bring this up is because the first little bit of them dating was exactly what you were describing, Toni, where they would go out with friends and
Mhm.
always be in a friend group, but they would always like gravitate towards each other. And it wasn't until they were a little bit older when they started to like start dating the more traditional way.
I wonder if they had, what's the word I'm looking for? Like a liaison in the friend group. That is a thing that was definitely around when I was a kid. Did you have that too? Where like, if I can't tell you how many times like I would call a boy on behalf of one of my friends.
Oh, yes.
Does that still happen?
That never happened to me.
In middle school, it does. In high school and older, I think we like to think that we're a bit more older and wiser, and we don't do that quite as much. But in middle school, I was definitely texting guys, being like, "Hey, so my friend asked me about this," or I've also done not so much at the behalf of my friends, but when I know two people like each other, who I'm both very close with, I will like.
Yeah.
Not necessarily set them up or like try to play matchmaker that much because that can sometimes lead to trouble.
Create situations.
But yeah, I've definitely
Set
created.
the scene.
I've created a couple situations in my time.
Like Emma.
Yeah. Worst date you ever had?
Worst date. Can you start? I have to think about it.
Okay, well, here's the issue. I haven't really gone on that many dates because I've only ever been in one really serious relationship. And as we have discussed, my generation doesn't do dating before a relationship. What I can say was towards the end of that relationship, the dates were not good because we both very much knew that the end was coming.
Totally.
But neither of us wanted to say it.
Yeah.
So, like, it was very awkward. There was a lot of tension. It was very anxiety-inducing, and it was bad. It had also been a relatively long relationship. We'd been dating for over a year at that point, and in high school, that's, like, a pretty big deal to be dating that long. So any other high schoolers who are, like, in a relationship right now, and you're kind of realizing that, like, I don't really like who I am around this person, and I don't really enjoy spending time with them anymore. Just leave.
Yeah.
Because 9 times out of 10, if you've brought up those problems before and you still see no change, like, it's not going to, and it's not worth it to try and stay and make it work because it won't.
Well, the whole thing, if you don't like who you are whenever you're with a person, that's like huge. Like,
Yes.
yeah, that is something that I think is ultimately like why I decided to get a divorce. Like, because I will try to, stick through something.
Yeah.
Stick through with it. It didn't matter how depressed I was. Like, but whenever I started like having like terrible thoughts and about him and like not liking how I acted anytime I was in the same place as him, I was like, okay, this has to end now.
Yeah.
And it's very hard, but I think it's so hard because, well, you're in it because you don't entirely know what's on the other side after you've like committed yourself to a person for so long. One of the questions that I see people online in those cheesy Instagram reels ask is, can you picture a life without that person? And when you're in a relationship, it feels like the answer is no. And then when you get out of it, you realize like, oh, the answer is yes. And I like this better.
I mean,
Yeah.
it becomes, whenever you're in a relationship with someone for a long time, it becomes part of your identity.
Absolutely.
Like, and when you get out of it, you have to figure out who you are again.
Yeah.
Like, completely new.
Something new for me now in dating is I had, as a raging codependent, I had never considered how being with another person makes me feel. I always focused on how I made another person feel. And I had never really considered how how being with a person makes me feel. That's been like a huge piece of growth for me.
Yeah.
And it's now become like non-negotiable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Need
Which
to
it
be.
should be.
It really should be. Yeah, if you don't like how you feel when you're with a person, like that's not your person.
Right, because a relationship should be mutually beneficial.
Yes.
Like, this isn't like an original or new thought, but it's like you shouldn't try to change the other person. You should just naturally inspire that other person to change and be a better person, and they should just naturally inspire you to change and be a better person
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah, it doesn't always happen like that. The joke used to be that I was like the wildlife foundation for men. Like I would take these wounded men and like fix them up and then release them back into the wild.
I mean, in the end, a person will only change if they want to.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the kind of thing where you're going in and fixing someone. It's that
Right.
they decide that they want to be different in whatever way they decide they want to be different.
And I think that when you're in a healthy relationship, the interactions almost inspire you to change naturally. You know, I hate the whole like you make me want to be a better man, like ugh, gross. But like, but noticing how your interactions with another person influence who you are, how you talk to yourself, like all the things that
Oh,
are
for
happening
sure.
internally. It's really, it's really worth examining.
Yeah, it like for me, it's crazy how much like my inner self dialogue changes
Yeah,
when I'm in a healthy relationship versus when I'm not.
yeah,
Because and if you guys listen to our mental health episode, you'd know that I struggle like with anxiety and depression, right? And so a lot of times my thoughts are not very nice to me.
yeah,
But you know, when you're dating somebody and you're dating the right person, it's a lot easier to kind of be like, no, you're wrong. Because of I know that
Like
these
to your
other
inner
people,
voice?
yeah, to your inner voice. So, kind of to that person as well sometimes because the self-doubt like gets in there and
Yeah.
you're like, I believe that you believe that versus a no, I believe that as well. But like it makes it a lot easier to tell your inner voice, shut up when
Yeah.
you're surrounded by people who love you and who you love. Because, and I don't want to be like, oh yes, my mental health is completely dependent on my romantic relationship, because that's not true. But I do think it's a lot easier when you have somebody who's like, no, these are all the things that I love about you.
yeah.
And because then you start to think, well, if they feel that way towards me, well, then my friends also feel that way towards me. And then my family also feels that way towards me. And then I can start telling those inner voice, be quiet. You're wrong. I have all this. I have my support system to tell you you're wrong, you know?
A good relationship definitely gives you confidence in yourself.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's nice when you're with a person who you feel like really sees you.
Yeah.
Even
sure.
the parts of you that like are nuts.
Mm-hmm.
My boyfriend is like a very grounded individual, deep processor, like takes a lot of time, it's very focused, and I'm not like that at all. And I find though when I spend time with him, it is easier for me to get into that headspace.
Yeah.
Like it's nice to co-regulate with someone who's regulated.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. Because you can co-regulate, you can co-dysregulate with someone. You can co-regulate or co-dysregulate.
Yeah.
And I've had a lot
Sure.
of co-dysregulation. Yeah. Sometimes it's like that in friendships too. You know, you can kind of do both.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to hear about my worst date?
Yes.
Which one?
I felt like whenever you asked that question, you had an answer, so I do want to hear.
I do have an answer. I have like a lot of answers. So, in the lead up to meeting my husband, I did a lot of dating on Match. I went out on a lot of dates, and some were neutral and some were horrible. This one was, I think, the weirdest. I had been chatting with this guy online for a while, and I remember what I liked about him was he seemed like a little bit vulnerable, like he was willing to share some things, and he also seemed kind of shy. And I like that can kind of be my specialty sometimes. Like I can take a shy person and like just get in there, you know. And so I was like, "No, this is cool. Let's meet." So we're going to meet at this place called Classy Coffee in Huntington, which was like this nice coffee shop, but it was cozy. They didn't have coffee shops like that on Long Island back in the day. But this one had like board games and comfy couches. And I was like, yeah, we'll meet there. So I'm standing outside waiting for this date. And this huge white van pulls up with no windows.
Yikes.
The passenger door swings open and he leans out the door and he's like, get in. And I was like, no. And he was like, no, I'm an EMT. And I just got a call down the road, like, just come on. And I was like, no, I'm going to get a slice of pizza. And when you're done with your call, like, if you want to get together, like, that's fine, maybe. So he leaves. 20 minutes later, I'm eating a slice of pizza at Rose's, and he calls, and he was like, you still want to get together? I was like, yeah, that's fine.
In a public place.
Yes,
I'm not gonna get
exactly.
Into a
I'm
car
not going
with
to get in
you.
your freaking van.
Yeah. No.
So he shows up, and he's wearing this like winter beanie kind of thing. And I just remember like one of the things that he said, he doesn't like to draw a lot of attention to himself. He's really shy. He pulls off his beanie. His hair is bright pink, which is fine. Like, but surprising,
Yeah.
right? And I was like, oh, your hair's bright pink. He's like, yeah, my mom did it for me last night. And I was like, I gotta go.
How old was this guy?
He was in his 30s.
Oh, okay. Because I think that's another thing that generationally is a difference. Because like I've like almost given up all hope that I'll ever own a house one day.
Absolutely.
So like
This was a different time. People really could still buy houses.
right. So like to me, even if you're in your mid-20s and you're still living with your parents, as long as you're like not dependent on them and you're independent and like you pay rent and
Yes,
stuff.
I want to clarify. What
But, like,
bothered me
30s?
was not that he lived with his mommy, but that his mommy dyed his hair for him.
Yes.
Too intimate. It's like taking a bubble bath. I don't know. It just seemed yucky.
Whenever it gets to that point, it kind of feels like, am I always going to be second to your mom?
Totally.
Mhm.
Totally. It was just it was like a crystal ball,
Yeah.
his pink hair.
You could see
You could see your future in it.
the mother-in-law.
Yes,
of
totally.
the- oh my
Totally. Yeah.
gosh.
So that was one of the really bad ones.
That's so funny. I appreciate a funny bad date joke.
Mhm.
Yeah,
bad
yeah,
date
I have a lot
story,
of
not joke.
those. It was a little bit of a joke. But like a great first date doesn't mean like a great relationship.
Mhm.
Some people are a slow burn. You gotta like let it happen.
Yeah.
No, this might just be me, but I've always seen like first dates as the most awkward that your relationship is ever going to get, because for the talking stage you fall into that rhythm, you're used to that rhythm, and then all of a sudden here's something that breaks up that rhythm.
Yeah.
Even if it's both something that you guys really 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 want,
Yeah.
it can be awkward because you're like, okay, well now we are officially in this relationship. What are the boundaries here? What are like what type of physical affection is okay for a first
Totally.
date? What type of conversations are okay with the first date? Because with my generation, by the time you get to the first date, most likely you've already been talking for several months, and most likely you've already had conversations about like religion, marriage, kids, things like that.
Several months of talking.
I guess it depends, but I
Wow.
would say the average would be like 2 months by the time you guys get to like an actual first date. Because I don't know people, but I've heard of people who will be talking to somebody for like 6 months, which is crazy to me.
Yeah.
And then I also know people who they meet, they pine, they have a very short talking stage, and then they meet and they're like, you know what? We both know we like each other.
Yeah.
Let's just start going out.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. You know, but the friends that I know, I would say they talk to their now partners for like a couple of months, and then had a couple of months of dating but not in a relationship. My friends are the only people that I know who do that, by the way, who like still date each other without putting the label on it. But hey, it works for them. So
when you say dating but not in a relationship, you just mean that they haven't
put the
vocalized that
label
they're-
on it,
Mhm.
but like it's a relationship in all intents and purposes other than the label.
Toni, if you were growing up now as a Gen Z, do you think that your dating style would be different, or do you think that you would still be exactly who you are? Because I do think it's very different for.
I think it depends on, did the first 17 years of my life go the same exact way that it
Yes.
did now? It did.
Yeah.
Then I think that I would be the same.
You do.
Yeah. There was just too much in those first years that like defined how I would be.
Yeah.
Yeah, it has less to do with my age and more to do with just
Your
my
experiences.
experiences.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay, this is random,
Mhm.
but I feel like it's instructive.
Hmm.
If you had to pick a movie that you think is a good representation of like your generational, like dating for your generation.
So like kind of the stereotype and not
Yeah.
like your own personal.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. And I have one. And
Go
we
for
can.
it.
Okay, so I think that for Gen X, it's the movie Singles.
Somebody mentioned that movie to me. I've never seen
You've
it.
never seen it?
No.
It's got Scott Campbell Scott. I can never remember which one he is. It takes place in Seattle. It's about a group of friends who are dating, and it's like firmly planted in like the grunge era, and people are dating through. There used to be a service where you would do a videotaping of
Oh,
yourself, and then if you subscribe to it, you would get like a VHS in the mail of like 4 people, and you'd
Nice.
watch their videos, and you could decide if you wanted to date them or not. And then so somebody met that way. One of the people meet in a club, which was also like a people used to meet in clubs and bars like that with the express purpose of trying to meet a partner. That was like very regular. And then other people, one person has like serious limerence for somebody else. And I think that I think that the way that the people engage with each other, I think it's like Gen X just perfectly encapsulated, even though it's a like Pacific Northwest lens, which I think is its own thing. But I think that kind of nails it.
So do you think that that's like current Gen X as they're older, or is that
No,
more of like the
that's-
younger whenever you're like 20 something?
When
Yeah,
you're in
I
your
think
like late
that-
teens and early 20s.
Yeah, I think that because when I think of dating, what I think of is being young, which I guess is sad. But that's how I think of it. So yeah, I think that encapsulated the dating experience when we were young, and like everyone was a lot of people are settled down now. You know, it's so yeah.
I'm trying to think because I think the stigma for Gen Z is more the hookup culture, which I don't really know if there's a movie about that. None
Right.
of them really comes to mind.
I might have 2.
Okay.
Ooh.
You go while I think.
So I was also thinking of like the 20-ish
Yeah.
age, and I would say Reality Bites and Garden State.
Oh,
Have you ever seen either of
I
those?
have not.
this is an assignment.
Okay. Are they rom-coms or are they more like contemporary?
They're more like drama rom-coms.
Okay.
Yeah.
But whenever you, especially
Especially
Reality
Garden
Bites.
State. That
Oh, I
is
was gonna
like
say,
so millennial.
When you see the people, yeah, it's very, very millennial.
It's a very
when
millennial
you see the
perspective.
people who are in Reality Bites, you'll be like, oh my God, that's crazy that all these people are in this.
It's Winona Ryder, Ethan
Oh.
Hawke.
Oh, dang.
Steve Zahn,
Yeah.
Janine Garofalo,
Yes.
Oh, dang.
Ben Stiller.
So it's just like all of these like really iconic actors.
It's so good.
Yeah, I love that movie.
I watch that movie like once a year.
I need to get my boyfriend to watch it because he's never watched it. And I'm like,
Wow.
I just don't. What?
And maybe the reason you can't think of one is because Gen Z's not really making movies yet.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah, because I
Which is
think
fair.
that the rom-coms that come out for the Gen Z age, it's like Kissing Booth. It's like the Netflix rom-coms that I think of.
Yeah.
And I think the only one of those that I could see being like semi-critically acclaimed and not seen as Drek, which is a very fun word that I learned in my pop culture class. It's basically, Drek is the concept of television and movies that are there simply to entertain, and they have little to no
Ah.
value else.
Yeah.
And I think To All the Boys I Loved Before is a very fun rom-com, and I think that'll go down as a very iconic one as well.
Haven't seen that.
It's based off of, it's cute. It's based off of a book, and the premise is that this girl writes all of these letters whenever she has a really, really big crush on somebody. She writes these people all of these letters, and one day her little sister finds the letters and mails them out to people. And one of these people, and one person that she wrote a letter for, the most recent crush, is her older sister's boyfriend.
Ooh.
So to try,
Juicy.
it gets more juicier.
No spoils though, because I'm gonna
This
watch
is just
it.
the synopsis
Okay.
that I'm giving you.
Okay.
So to try and convince her sister and the boyfriend that, haha, that's just a joke, she and another receiver of the letters, because she wrote like 5 letters or something like that, decide to start fake dating.
I love a good fake dating.
It's a good fake dating story. So yeah, that
It always turns out that they start dating for real in the end.
Not always.
not.
Oh, no.
My best friend's wedding.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah. All right, look, we're coming to time.
Alrighty.
Is there anything we didn't talk about that we really want to talk about?
We didn't talk about blind dates.
Which I've never been on.
Do those happen?
That's what I wanted to talk about. I don't think they happen
you ever
anymore.
been on a
yes.
blind date?
I have never.
It's awful.
Yeah, I haven't
It's
either.
a nightmare.
I think
would
that's
never
why
ever want
it's.
to. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's why it's never. Why
It's
it's not a
terrible
thing
for
anymore.
everyone.
It's
Yeah.
because it's terrible.
Yeah.
I feel like it's terrible for the people on the date, and it's terrible for the people who set them up because it never
Yes.
goes well.
Nope, it never goes well. Yeah. But other than no, I think we hit everything. The huh of the week isn't really a huh. It's just it was just something I was wondering. One of my friends, their mom was like cleaning out the closet and found like a shoebox full of notes that we had passed in high school. And like that was a huge part of our like daily like you would write like a note and fold it all beautifully and hand it to them in the hallway. Did y'all do that?
Oh
Or
yeah.
You did. Yeah.
Did you text?
No, but we have a modern day equivalent, and the modern day equivalent is Google Chat. So what you do, and Google Chat's
You use
really
Google
nice.
Chat?
Yes,
This is
because
so sad.
because it's on our
You're doing
actual
it.
school Chromebooks, and we can like type on there without it being suspicious. Also, Google Chat's really great because it can span across multiple schools. So we'll go and we'll use Google Chat as our like passing notes in class. I kind of wish we did, because I think it's so much.
You should start. You should start it because it's much more. I think it's more intimate because like you'll write a whole thing about your day. You lose the immediacy of getting their feedback, and I think that there's something great about like letting your brain go on for
Are
a
you
minute
trying
about
to make
something.
a fortune teller?
No, this is how we used to pass notes. I'm
This
going
is
to
our
show you what
notes.
I did.
This is actually not a note thing. This is a
This is a fortune
teller.
teller.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I used to pass. My notes looked like this always. There's so much
See,
crunching.
Oh
I
yeah,
have
I did
made-
that. We did those. Too.
Yeah.
I have made fortune tellers before. I do know how to make.
Oh, I'm out of practice.
That it like looks like a football in the end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you would.
Did you make these?
Oh, of course.
Okay.
Yeah, the fortune tellers.
And so then it would be more elegant than this. But then you put their name on it, and then you'd see them in the hallway. You high five them with one hand, and then you'd slip them the note with another, and then they would bring it to class. And then to like get a note from someone and
Yeah.
like get to English class and like just zone out and read your note.
That's fascinating.
I really think you should start writing notes.
Writing notes is so
Well, the
much
issue
fun.
is that I never see my friends in the hallways because they all go to different schools.
Yeah, that's the
Okay.
problem. You can mail it.
Oh yeah,
Oh yeah,
Getting stuff in the mail is
that's not a bill.
Yeah.
getting mail is fun. That's
Yeah.
something
Yes.
that like even I get excited about. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, I have mail.
Yeah, getting a letter is lovely, and that's what it was. And it was a whole box. It was a whole box of these notes that my friend had. Thought that was pretty cool.
I don't have any of my notes from high school anymore. I just have my yearbooks with like all of the
Yeah.
signatures in there. with all
Keep
the
in
notes.
touch. Have a great summer. Hags. The kit and hags. Like, keep in touch and have a great summer.
Oh, we didn't do that yet.
Maybe that's a younger millennial
I mean,
to Gen
we didn't
Z
call
thing.
it hags, but we always
Kitten
said
hags. That's funny.
yeah.
I like that. All right. Take us out.
Alrighty, thank you so much for listening to this episode of the XYZ Dictionary. If you've enjoyed this episode, follow us wherever you get your podcasts. If you're on Spotify and have a few minutes, leave us a 5-star rating. It really helps. You can catch the video version of this episode on the New Mexico Public Access channel. Follow us at to be determined.
I'm having Instagram issues.
Okay.
We're having trouble on the gram.
Good to know.
Yeah.
Follow us on Instagram so we can give you the release dates. You can follow me at cj.film.s on Instagram.
I am at Once on a Rainy Day on Instagram.
And I'm Melissa Lux Writes, having issues on Instagram.
We will see you next week. Thank you so much for listening.
Thanks.
Bye.
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 We should have talked about our best dates ever.
Oh, I didn't even tell my worst date story.
You
Which
didn't.
I couldn't-
How'd you get out of that?
I don't know. We just like
We
started
just kind
talking
of,
about
like-
other stuff.
The podcast. Thank you.
You're welcome.
We have elevator music that we can.
Ding, 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 dun, 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 dun.